Hey guys, welcome back to Testing with Destined. Today is a very anticipated unit, Leikan, the brand new Tactitian Arbiter Nightmare coming very soon. And he's very interesting. He has a lot of moving parts and really not many moving parts at the same time. And he's going to be really a crazy matrix specialist is how his kit reads. But the question is, how good is he really? Well, that is what I will be going over in this video. Before we get into it, make sure to like the video and subscribe. Best way to support the channel. Anyways, Leikan, let's go over the kit very quickly, and then let's get into some content. Mostly I'm going to focus on Matrix, but I'm also going to go into some other things. Leikan is a Tactician, 18 cost, from the Nightmare and Arbiter factions. Now I'll explain why those are kind of weird a little bit later, but going into the stats, we have this. This is one of the weirdest ranges. The best thing I can kind of compare this to is like Neja with his ult on has a similar range to this. Not only that, I mean, Ezreath has a kind of similar range. It definitely seems like they're trying to make a lot of these heroes have strange ranges like that because, I mean, it's good for things like, you know, Matrix, right? And then going into the stats, we have over 30,000 HP, which is very high. We have 5,400 attack, which is pretty good. 18 cost, like I said earlier. The attack speed is kind of high at 3.0, but he is part of the Nightmare faction, so that's actually kind of manageable. And then the rage regens are pretty damn normal. Going into the kit, we have Lethal Judgment. Now his entire kit revolves around a lethal judgment. This is essentially like any unit that has a strong standout attack. Basically deals 300% AoE physical damage one time to up to 8 enemies and inflicts 2 stacks of radiant erosion for 10 seconds. Yes, he does do physical damage, okay? So he's going to be used in areas like physical side of Matrix, which is heavily lacking right now. Now, Lethal Judgment, not only putting out radiant erosion and 300% AoE physical damage, it can also be used every 12 seconds, and every basic attack you do reduces the cooldown by 1 second. So let's say it takes you 6 seconds to do 6 basics, well, you're going to be able to do it again. Lethal Judgment deals 30% less damage to airborne units. Now, that's really weird that it says that, but it's fine. Going on, Lethal Judgment also executes enemies with HP below 15%, does not apply to elites or bosses. Going into the basic attack, deals 120% AoE damage to the target and up to 5 enemies around the target. Damage to airborne units is reduced by 30%. Going into the first passive, we have Wrath of the Earth. Every time Lethal Judgment, the strong attack, kills an enemy, which is often because it's doing a lot of damage, then it's going to restore additional rage by 20. And the next Lethal Judgment after a kill has increased damage range, which is very strange that it just increases the range for the next one of these, but it's something at the end of the day. Going to the second passive, this one is really weird and has a lot of unanswered questions just from reading it. When allied hero or heroes enter or leave the range within 2 tiles of the caster, reduces the cooldown of Lethal Judgment by 5 seconds and temporarily increases the caster and the allies' damage by 25% for 15 seconds. This is so strange. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. When someone next to him either gets killed or pulled or you move him out, because he is a tactician, you can move him. It's going to buff not only him, but also them. So this really screams as to, hey, move him around a lot. So that's pretty cool. I definitely know that in the dev insight, or not dev insight, the dev interview, they said they were trying to make new tactician units a little bit more, you know, potent when it comes to moving them frequently versus just keeping them down, because stuff like Valara and Moradin, you just kind of sit him down at the end of the day. And then arena damage increased by 15% because he is an Arbiter. And then the ultimate can choose and move to an unoccupied ground tile within 3 tiles. Can also, now this is really cool, Move to a ground tile occupied by an ally hero to force their retreat. The first movement in each battle reduces that ally's redeployment time by 75%, so they come back very fast, and next deployment cost by 50%. That's really cool. So for areas like Malor calls, say you're only dealing with 8 slots, well, you can move them into one of your tanks if you're needing a bit of extra damage, but you don't have the slots, and then the tank will be back, and you can move them out. I don't know, there's a lot of potential for certain content with that ability. I think it's pretty cool. Now, within 30 seconds after casting the ultimate, increases attack by 25%, and each basic attack reduces lethal judgment cooldown by an additional 2 seconds. So 3 seconds a basic. Lethal judgment can be triggered 1 extra time when triggered, so it triggers 2 hits instead of 1. Very, very, very strong ult, I'm just gonna say right now. Now going into the awakenings, the A1, per battle, the ultimate can trigger the ally deployment time and cost reduction 1 additional times. So instead of 1, it's 2. Now, when triggered, additionally reduces redeployment time by 75% and next deployment cost by 25%. A2 is extra attack, as is pretty normal. The A3 when Storm Shroud, which is the thing with the allies, when it triggers, it increases the duration by 5 seconds. So instead of 20 seconds, the damage increase is going to be 15, or instead of 15 seconds, it's going to be 20 seconds. Going to the A4, we have penetration plus 8%, and the A5 increases lethal judgment damage multiplier by 120%, so up to 420%, and execution threshold goes up to 20% instead of 15%. So basically, if you're going to awaken him, his A5 is going to be his main one. If you don't get his A5, don't stress too much about the awakenings. Going into the build, I have Helm of Helios because he does not have an exclusive artifact, which makes it so you have to use one of these, and this is the best damage one. Going into the gear as well, we have Soulbound. Now, I haven't geared him as good as the other allies in areas like Matrix, but he's still geared pretty well. So just keep that in well. You can see the stats right there. Now, the first thing, and really the main thing, is going to be Matrix. Now, there's a couple of things I do need to mention before going into this. So this is the first team I'm going to show. I'm going to show a couple other teams and, you know, a couple other bits of testing or whatever. But the main things we got to cover here is the factions. So Nightmare and Arbiter on paper are really bad for Matrix. Right now, the meta is either Northerner and Chaos, and then you run Watcher. The thing is, Watcher is kind of a requirement because Nejaz's the single best DPS for this. And then, aside from that, you know, if I run this team, which is Nightmare using 4 Nightmare units, a lot of these units are good and can be used, but I can't use Ardea, right, who's one of the best DPS. Not only that, Arbiter is really bad. So if you're going to run Leikan, you either run him without a Lord, or you run him with a Nightmare team. Now, I'm going to show you why Nightmare teams are actually not that bad, and surprisingly not not terrible. Like, they might even be meta after this. But for the most part, that's a problem. Another problem is this. Less damage to airborne units. I think, now I can't confirm anything related to this, but I think the Matrix enemies count as flying, but they also don't. Because things that can't hit flying can hit them, but things that do piercing damage do extra damage to them. And not only that, Erlang does extra damage to them. So I don't know if that limits his damage. Now, the other thing I want to mention is Kagiri potentially, now I'm going to test this shortly, but I just want to go over Matrix first. He may actually proc the extra damage. Now, if Kagiri procs this, that's going to be really, really hype. But of course, I will have to check that out later. But what I want to do now is just show you guys what he can do in Matrix. So the first thing I want to show is his range. His range is perfect for Matrix. Literally, the second it comes out of Portal to anywhere on the side, Leikan will deal damage to it. And the thing is, what you're going to see is Leikan does damage in a specific way where he is actually always going to do damage spread out evenly, and it's really, really good. Now I'm going to place the rest of the guys. This is going to be kind of rudimentary. I don't plan on getting to like 60k or whatever. This is just kind of an example run We're going to press auto ults here, and then we're going to put on the damage statistics. Now, what I want to show here is Leikan does a rain of damage, and he does damage to everything. Now, Kagiri's going to come in and do a ton of damage and everything, but Leikan is doing about 250k on a basic to 5 enemies, and then when he does his big hit, he's doing 700k to 8 enemies, which is pretty much every enemy that's going to be there. That's really good damage. And the thing is, with Nightmares and with the meta of like Tallulah and freaking Leia and Airless, you're always basically going to have his ult up, which means that he's going to be doing that very, very often. So he actually shreds. Now, this is a little skewed because Nejad does have 3 DPS on his side, so his damage is going to be a bit slower. But the thing is, or a bit lower than it should be, but the thing is, Nejad's very slow. Nejad does a lot of damage, very, very good, but he's very slow, right? He's consistent, but he's slow. Leikan is not slow. He's weaker in a way, but he hits more enemies more evenly, and he's not as slow. So what you're going to see is, Leikan generally is going to be going on a side that you want to be faster. So on the other side, I assume you'd want like 3 DPS. I don't really know at the end of the day, but that's what my thinking is. Anyways, you can see the damage numbers here. Keep in mind that Leikans are skewed, but Nejad does have better gear than him. But still, this is incredibly impressive. This is basically comparable damage to Ardea, which I'll show a little bit later, a bit of a comparison. But still, the damage is very good. Now, Kagiri obviously shredding as well, but Leikan's damage is so much better than I thought it would be. And he's honestly not that slow. Now, Tallulah is going to die there. I have so much HP on Tallulah, I don't know why she dies. I was getting up to 50k earlier, but then someone would die inevitably, or whatever. But at the end of the day, I mean, Leikan's damage is pretty good if you use a Nightmare Lord with a full Nightmare team. And Rygar, surprisingly, is really solid. I mean, this is similar damage to something like Elder, like a Valderon, which are currently meta, and it's not terrible. Now, Helsing's damage is kind of letting me down, and we lost a lot of our supports, so we're gonna die here. Either way, Leikan does decent damage at the end of the day. Here, let me just sell freaking Nejad. You can see Nejad doing about 500, Leikan doing about 400, and then everyone else below. A little bit skewed, but at the end of the day, that's still pretty damn good, right? I mean, pretty solid. Now let's go over some other teams though. Instead of an entirely new comp or whatever, I want to kind of show off Leikan versus Ardea. So obviously I do need to put a couple Nightmare units, and then we're going to have Elder over here, of course. And we're actually doing no inspiration. We're purely going in just mano y mano and just kind of comparing the two as best I can. So here we're going to bring in our Leikan, then we're going to bring our Ardea, and then we're going to put some support nearby. So here we could do Airless for Ardea. We're going to put down Kagiri and sell him, and then we're going to put down our Rygar and sell him. Then we're going to put down our Tallulah like this. Then we can put down our Airless, like, my mouse is freaking bugging, my bad. But yeah, we're gonna go like this, and then we can go like this, and see what happens. Now, we're gonna press auto ults here. Now, Leikan is controllable, which is good. And as you can see, the damage is actually favoring Leikan when he has his ult up. Now, unfortunately for Leikan, when Ardea ult, Ardea does a ton of damage and is going to clear things like nothing. So that's a big, big, big difference right there. But Leikan is still kind of showing up and doing very, very respectable damage compared to Ardea. But the second Ardea gets to the ult, everything's dead immediately, and there's just no comparison. So realistically, in my mind, with how much rage regen is given, I do think that they are pretty even, purely for the fact that Leikan actually does consistent damage, and Ardea's damage is very skewed. But basically, I would honestly run both of these on a team with Neja, obviously, and then I would also just have one of them not attached to a Lord. I think that's probably the best. As you can see, Ardea is still a little bit better, but hey, you gotta respect the amount of damage Leikan is doing. The last team that I want to try for this is going to be with no Lord. Because Leikan on paper, you know, his factions are kind of mediocre right now. They have potential to be better, potential to be meta, but for now, they're not the best. So we're going to run this team. In this team, I'm kind of replacing Lady Mina, or I'm replacing Talon, really whatever you plan on doing, and Leikan is not Lorded. Now, if we go over here, we're going to put Ardea. We're going to do Leia, we're going to do Kagiri, we're going to do Durza. Then we're going to put our Neja on the side. We're going to buff him. And then we're going to put down Leikan. Then we are going to buff him. And then we can put Elder just to kind of help on the left. Or we could also help on the right, which might be a bit better, but we'll see if that ends up mattering. Anyways, we're going to just kind of auto-ult, and I'll explain a little bit. This is not going to last super long. I will say most of what's going wrong here in these runs are the survivability. I can't seem to get them to live. I would definitely say like Elder bottom right would probably be better just because it would make Azrin and Leikan have the shields. But for this, I just want to show the two of them, Neja and Leikan on the right, and then the left can kind of do whatever. And we're just going to compare the damage. So we're going to let it do its thing. I mean, there's not much I could say here. It's just, hey, you know, this is the easy part. We'll get to the hard part. There's not much more to Matrix than just clicking auto and then letting it do whatever it does tend to do. But yeah, I'm just gonna skip ahead a little bit, and I'll see you guys in a second. Now, we're at about 42k, and let's just say Ezra died, and we're gonna struggle a little bit. In my opinion, I think if I just moved Elder to the bottom right, it would have been fine. But still, Leikan did good damage. That's what I can say. I mean, he's not gonna be like some absurd game changer. But hey, we're getting almost 50k, only Ezra died. That's pretty good, in my opinion. So, right here, we should start to die, which we're not. This really speaks to RNG, because I have not gotten another run like this. But hey, here we lived somehow, and I don't know how. But either way, that is the run for 50k. So he does have a place in Matrix, even without a Lord. If you don't have all the units, I think he'll be a great pickup for Matrix. But if you have all the units, maybe he won't be an absolute, oh my god, you have to have him, he's required type of unit. But is there anything else he's good at? Now, of course, a pretty obvious place that he'd be useful is Malor calls. There's a couple applications I want to use him in. Number one, I want to use him in place of Valara. I don't want to use Valara. I want to see how well he does with the bottom. This is a level 4 purple. I think it was this one. And we're just going to see what happens there. Then I'm going to try him on the top, because his range really emphasizes that he would be good in areas like this, right? Because he covers both sides. He hits both sides simultaneously. Usually I put my Neja up here. But, you know, Leikan might work here. And then maybe I could even put Neja right here if I need a bit more damage. I could kind of do whatever the hell I want, right? Not only that, I mean, I feel like he'd be good at the bottom, right? So we're going to put our Leikan right here. We're going to give him a little boosty boost. This is not going to work for the entire run, but I just want to run it like this anyways. So here we can actually go like this because Leikan has a very long range. And we're going to ult with it. So let's see how it goes. We can move our Morden up. And Leikan's actually doing really well. Damn, that's actually not bad. What the heck? Alright. Well, let's see. Does he work? Let's do airlifts because we do need rage regen. Unfortunately, Leikan does not have a ton of rage regen, though he does gain a bit of rage, so that is definitely a benefit right there. Here we could do Neja at the top very quickly. And we should clear the bottom. Now, keep in mind, this isn't like a super high rank rune by any means, but this is a good demonstration, right? So, one more wave, and we can kind of get a good idea here. Cyrus is going to do his thing, of course, with skeletons, and then we'll be able to click the Leikan ult. And as you can see right there, he's doing some good damage. Now, I do want to test one more thing out briefly before I try him at the top. But yeah, look, I mean, he still has half of his ult left. His ult's 30 seconds long, and he cleared the bottom. So if you don't have Valara, he does actually work for the bottom surprisingly well. Now, is he going to be the same? No, he doesn't really have any CC. His ultimate comes back slower, and I don't foresee him being amazing. Maybe you might be able to use him with another unit, but still, that's undeniably pretty decent, which is good. Now, you could also move him into your Cyrus, as an example. Here, we're kind of struggling at the top. Whoops. But you could potentially move him into your Cyrus, get rid of your Cyrus if you need, or something along those lines, but I can't really show it because he's about to get overrun. Here, let's go like this. Let's say for some reason you get rid of your Cyrus. Well, you can push him out, and then he has freaking 13 seconds. So that's another cool application you could use, but I just don't know how to make a scenario where that would be useful. It's the only thing. Alright, here you can see that I have a couple things. I accidentally put Leikan on the bottom, so I literally just moved him up a little bit. So he actually does kind of help. And now I can move him again if I wanted to. Here we're going to put down our Kagiri right there, and then we can move Leikan in a second. Let me move our Moradin like this really quickly. We can click our Kagiri ult. And then we can move our Leikan in a second. I'm going to wait until his ult is pretty much up, and then we're going to move him in that middle tile right here. Oh wait, we can't. Let me move him now. It's a little bit messy, but you guys can see the vision. You can see the vision. Here we're going to clear the bottom with Valara. Valara just clears it so well. Gets her ult back immediately. Leikan will not replace her on the bottom, but at least he's an option, right? Now what we can do is we can move our Moradin up. We can put our Neja like this. And then we can move our Leikan up. Like this. Bam. Beautiful. And now you can see that we have a lot of damage. And we could obviously use a tank instead of Kagiri, but it's a level 4 purple. We don't really need the most damage. And you can see that Leikan is hitting everything, which is pretty damn cool. Now, he's not going to do a ton of damage to these guys because they are resistant to physical, but hey, if it works, it works, right? Basically, you know, Neja is there mostly for single target damage. Leikan is there for that AoE damage. So he's going to be interesting. Definitely an application you could use him in. I don't know if it'll be, you know, the most groundbreaking strat ever, but hey, you know, it's an area you can use him in, right? And the more damage that you can get on the top, the better. A lot of the time for these Malor calls, you just can't do enough, right? On the top. Because Valara can generally solo the bottom. The top is always struggling a little bit. Maybe this is a solution for you guys. He's not going to be Valara level, but hey. He works if you would like to use him. But yeah, that's Leikan in Malor calls. Let me just quickly kill this guy right here. You can see that he's doing pretty decent. And that guy's gonna die. Whoops. Well, big rips there. Anyways, moving on. Now, with that out of the way, I am gonna have to call it here. Purely because I haven't been doing the best physically, and I just can't push myself to do this for much longer. So I'm just gonna point out some areas I think he might be decent in. I'm not really gonna show it off because I just can't. AoE Arena, I think he has a place, especially because Arbiters are meta. Now, do I think he'll be the most insane unit ever? No. But the thing is, you know, he might be decent, right? He's gated by only hitting things in his range, though. So compared to Valara or Ezreath, I feel like he falls a bit flat. Not only that, he could have some use in guild versus guild. Good, solid AoE damage. Arbiters are meta. My only issue with Leikan is I feel like he just does Valara things worse than Valara. So the thing is, like, if it's between pulling for Leikan and pulling for Valara, I would just say pull for Valara, right? That's kind of my main issue. He's just kind of a worse physical Valara. So what do I think about him? Well, overall, I think he's good for Matrix. Is he going to be some power creep, required unit, must pull for this? No, I think he's held back by his factions. You know, if his faction was like Esotericist, or if his faction was Watcher, or if it was Piercer or Northerner, I think he would be super meta, right? You know, when he's on an Arbiter side or a Nightmare side, he does do good damage. It's just the current Matrix meta really does not help him very much. So I don't think he's going to be the greatest there compared to Ardea and Neja, but he is probably the third best DPS for it. So I would say he's worth a pickup there. Not only that, he works pretty well in Malor calls. I don't think he has enough rage to rival Valara on the bottom, but hey, he did good damage. He was definitely usable. His range is very good for this content, and the fact that he moves is very good. Not only that, I mean, he's decent in some relevant content. I think he'll be really good in Conqueror Codex. I don't know if he'll be meta. I don't think he will be, but he's good there, right? My only thing is he has so much potential, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense how he works, right? Like this, you have to move him to make use of this. But I feel like an issue in this game that tacticians really suffer from is there's no point to moving things. Because when you put one in a spot, 9 times out of 10, you want it to stay in that spot because that's the most optimal spot. And by moving them, you're going to weaken that area, right? Because they're watching that area, so you're not going to put another damage dealer there, but you need to put another damage dealer there if you're going to move them, right? So this is a really cool ability. I just don't personally see much use for it, except, you know, if someone figures something out, maybe that would be really good. I think he's strong. I think he's a good pickup. I don't think he's a requirement, but he is very strong. Okay, don't let this video serve as like a hey, he sucks. No, he's strong. It's just currently like Valar is so good that it just makes him worse, and it's more about the lords on the banners than the non-lords. Because he's a non-lord and he's not Valar level, I cannot tell you guys to pull for him, unfortunately. Now, there is also another area he may be good in, which is going to be Gear Dungeon 2. Keep that in mind. But yeah, I think he's good. I think he's like an 8 out of 10. But I can't like say he's a must pull due to the state of the game currently. But I think he's fun. I think he's good. I think he's worth picking up. That's my opinion. Thank you guys for watching. Sorry it wasn't like longer or more in depth or whatever. It's the best I could do. And yeah, see you guys later. Destined signing out.